Hello. If you missed the previous episode, then, well, you didn't miss anything. I'm building from scratch a chatting app that is functional for real, free to create, will be running Python on my Raspberry Pi permanently, and will get its input from a file using my phone, which will be running JavaScript, React, and other stuff. So I began by playing around with JavaScript, and GPT told me to use Socket library to connect my front to Python. So after a few miserable hours, as usual, I managed to make it seem like it's working perfectly, which it probably doesn't. I had to first make a pretty naked HTML and front-end things to make sure that it's possible or in my limited abilities to create communication between JavaScript and Python server, just to make sure that I'm not gonna be wasting my time on things that cannot be made. Now, I spent so much time fixing and messing with millions of things at the same time, and I still don't have cool looking app to flex for this video. So I want to quickly create a chat application to have some sort of product. But the real challenge is to make it not absolute useless junk. I'm also willing to do this because to create a chat room must be sure useful thing to know for future projects. And it should be easy, right? You just read the documentation and the knowledge passes on to you like Dragon Soul in Skyrim. Started by dipping my toes in JavaScript. I quickly connected the JavaScript to my Python server. It worked. I was all set to start programming the chat app. Then, however, I could not actually use it because they were exchanging raw data, and browsers don't do that apparently. So turns out I already hit my first dead end. After a quick Stack Overflow read, I went back to switch the libraries. I chose Socket.io with the help of GPT, who is my best friend by the way. GPT said that Socket.io is perfect for broadcasting, which sounds like what a chat app would need. I returned to my JavaScript tutorial and began creating the web app. After doing some JavaScript and HTML, things started to come alive. I could type an input and the HTML would show a response. So I quickly moved to step number 2, which was to CSS it. Now, I was still missing functionality. I could input text, but I was supposed to exchange messages with users. I had to learn more to tackle that challenge. So I looked up online a Socket.io tutorial, which was basically just a guy repeating over the documentation, but also making a slow video out of it. So anyways, I used it. His name is Miguel, and it was actually good. I used it to set up my server and learned how server sends events and information back and forth. I learned about bidirectional web communication and the polling thing. So I can now send text message to the server and the server can process that information, log it, broadcast it over to other clients or do whatever it wants. So I then set up a better UI that looked like a chatbox with my favorite colors, which is purple, that remind me of grape juice. I tested the app looking for things that it lacked and fixing them. At this point, I had implemented basic things that make a chat what it is, like keeping text in the text box, using scroll view, making input box blank after a message is sent, making the text break lines and other things. I kind of made a login screen page that lets you pick a username, so users can pick what they want to be identified as when they text. After a few days of programming, it was finally functional. I got my friends to join in just to show off my app, and it turned out to be a very funny chatting session, which also taught me a lot. I was getting SQL injections, logging in as me, weird text that's supposed to break something. I decided to work on some of these things that they raised, and I actually made user systems so people can't be named the same name, or to send blank text and names. And at last, I made funny, annoying features that would make it more exciting to show off to people, sort of like a party trick. So there it is. I have built a chat app, but I'm not happy. I was so focused on functionality first that I was losing creativity little by little. Each security feature made it more and more resemble strict, boring chat apps like we have a million of today. This project started with a vision and a goal set in mind, but now, if I was to continue, I can see it diverge into a few possible outcomes. I could turn it into early 2000s IRC lookalike for the sake of nostalgia, or resign the app from chatting purpose, turning it to text storing or archive of mine, or the final outcome, it would become a never-ending million features monster made to be extremely edgy and annoying for the lols. This is it. This looked like the end of the road for this project. For me, I failed to achieve the original goal of making it not absolute useless chat. However, on the bright side, it did bring me joy and some entertainment. It was crazy funny seeing friends populate it and use it, trying to break everything they can get their hands on. So maybe at the end of the day, it did sort of succeed providing me some kind of value, even though I wish I would have came up with something of value to the world. The end. I will upload the code and files to GitHub, and I will share the journal I logged during the process.